Well, by addressing the situation in Arizona, Lynn saved me from asking about 300 questions. Okay, Lynn, the next question is also an international question. It comes from the leader of the National Democratic Youth League and the Student Republic movement in Ukraine. He says, Mr. LaRouche, it is clear that an ever greater number of countries are sliding into a new barbarism. And one of the key symptoms is the lower and lower level of competence of those who are running the governments. At the same time, in many countries, the public and even well-informed experts are essentially barred from having any influence on important decisions. It seems that more and more countries, either explicitly or implicitly, are going toward dictatorship, and in some cases even bloody dictatorship. Our question to you is, how can we carry out mobilization plans for economic development while at the same time preserving civil rights and preventing repression and an atmosphere of fear? I suspect that this is a question that relates not only to my own country, but perhaps also to your own, and also to many others across the globe.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. We have to look. The prevalent culture throughout this planet for more than 100 years, including the United States, is the same thing as the similar thing for us in ancient times of the slave system. I mean, how is it possible that in this republic you could have the buildup of an organization in the so-called southern states and beyond, actually, of this kind of racism? The absolutely brutal kind of thing. We are living in a brutalized society, and the past century has been characterized, the century. Look, I want to put a particular label on this. All right. Go back to the 1875. In 1875, the United States had emerged from a struggle against slavery and out of a civil war, and had made a revolution such as typified by the transcontinental railway system, by the great industries which surged and were celebrated in 1876 in Philadelphia. 1877, the people from Russia and China and elsewhere around the world came to the United States to seek, what is this miracle? And you had particularly people from Russia and from Germany, both. What they did is they launched we had created a trans-American railway system, transcontinental system. That, together with the industry development, which went with that, had transformed the United States in such a way that we in the United States had created a situation where maritime power could no longer dominate the world because it was cheaper. It was cheaper to use transcontinental railway systems to transport goods for trade than it was water systems, maritime systems. The British call this a geopolitical crisis because suddenly the empire, which had been a maritime empire, was no longer assured of the ability to control the planet because no longer were long voyages on ships the efficient way to deliver goods back and forth in the process of international production. The British went to war, and we've been in a war since 1890, from the time the British Empire, the British monarchy, fired the Chancellor of Germany, Bismarck. The issue was geopolitics. Which is going to dominate the world economy? Is it going to be land transport or water or ocean transport? Because if it's not ocean transport, then the maritime system, which is what the British Empire was, could no longer control the planet. Since that time, since 1875, 1890, the British Empire has organized warfare, destructive warfare, throughout this planet with two purposes. One is to set the major nations against one another so they could no one nation or group of nations could be independent of the British Empire, to preserve the British Empire. And all these wars that we've been fighting, including right now in Afghanistan, is a continuation of what was actually occurred as a product of firing of Bismarck in 1890. All wars we fought, World War I, the declaration of war against Russia and China by Japan and Britain, the declaration of war against the United States, agreement on a war against the United States by Britain and Japan, including the attack on Pearl Harbor in the 1920s. It took place in 1941. But the policy, the alliance, was made for the attack on Pearl Harbor in the 1920s, early 1920s. Why? Geopolitics. What was the British policy? The British policy is the naval power, the maritime power of the United States must be destroyed. Not eliminated, but destroyed. And so Japan was enlisted and developed under British direction to become the naval power to take out the Pearl Harbor base. That was the 1920s, early 1920s, about the time I was born. That's what the problem is. So now you have a maritime system which comes out of the same maritime system of the Mediterranean we associate with the Roman Empire, has continued to dominate this planet up to this time. The United States, by being a United States, became the major obstacle to the realization of a permanent Roman Empire upon this planet. When the United States, by victory over the Confederacy, which was a British puppet, they killed Lincoln, and they set into motion a plan to destroy the United States. And the plan was set into motion, was organized against Bismarck. Because Bismarck was building the international anti-maritime system. So that's what the problem has been. So we're dealing with an empire which says it cannot continue to be an empire unless it can destroy the United States. That's why the British put Obama into the presidency in the United States. Who was part of this? The Bush family. Prescott Bush, the grandfather of the last piece of crap that we had of that family in the presidency. Prescott Bush was the man working with the Bank of England through Brown Brothers Harriman. And Prescott Bush was the guy who moved the money to put Hitler into a position of power in Germany. The British put Hitler into power, and the Wall Street crowd was part of it. This is the same thing, the same geopolitics, the same issue that we're finding today. It's the same idea of the oligarchical principle. The same damn thing. That's what we're fighting against. You've got a bunch of nations in Europe and elsewhere in the world who think they understand what good is. They don't. They have these illusions. And so we have to look at things in that way. We're in a social crisis, yes. We're in an economic crisis. As I've said today, and this, forgive my bad eyes again, but what I had to put on the record today was that policy, because that's where we are. That's an American policy, and it was already the intention of our Constitution, the real Constitution, the meaning of our existence, the meaning of the Mayflower landing and development, the meaning of everything good that's been done by us, or anything good that's done by any other part of the world. It brings to the same end. We just happen to have an advantage because we took the better part of a continent and developed it as a force of power for this cause, as opposed to Europe was saturated with this crap. That's what the answer is. That's the thought that you have to keep in mind, and the answer that comes to you.